Bad habits don't start with a bang. They don't kick the door down and announce their arrival. They whisper. They arrive in silence. One overlooked moment, one skipped task, one excuse that sounds reasonable, then another, and another. Slowly, without even noticing, you're no longer in control. You start handing over pieces of your life to something that doesn't serve you. And by the time you realize it, the damage has already begun. That's the trap. That's how it works. Bad habits don't break you in a day. They wear you down. They chip away at your discipline, your focus, your potential, until one day you wake up and wonder, how did I get here? But the truth is, you didn't get there overnight. You arrived through repetition, through choices made in silence, through moments where comfort won over purpose, through decisions where fear won over growth. People often wait for some grand failure to take action. They wait for a crisis, for something big to shake them awake. But that's the problem. By the time the crisis hits, you've already given the habit too much control. You don't wait to fix a leak when the house is underwater. You act when you see the first drip. And that's what this is, a warning, a call to become alert. Because bad habits are like termites. You don't see them, but they're eating away at your foundation, at your character, at your confidence. And they will keep eating until there's nothing left to hold you up. You may think it's just a small thing, just one more scroll on your phone, just one more skipped workout, or just one more time saying, I'll start tomorrow. But it's never just once. It becomes a pattern, a system, a routine of self-sabotage. And the worst part is, you begin to normalize it. You start thinking this is just who you are now. That's the real danger. When the habit becomes part of your identity, when you no longer see it as something outside you, but something that defines you, that's when it becomes a cage. But here's the truth. Habits don't define you. They reflect you. They mirror your standards. And your standards can change. You have the ability to confront what's been quietly controlling your days. But it starts with awareness, with waking up, with realizing that what you do in private shapes who you are in public, that your future isn't being stolen by big disasters, but by the small things you keep allowing, every excuse you justify, every delay you defend, every moment you choose comfort over character. The real danger is not in the habit itself. The real danger is in how long you let it stay. Because the longer it stays, the louder it gets. And soon it won't be a whisper anymore. It will be the voice that decides your actions. It will be the pattern that shapes your results. And if you don't stop it, it will stop you. Or it will stop your progress, your momentum, your belief in yourself. That's why it must be broken before it breaks you. This is your wake-up call. Not to panic, not to feel shame, but to take your power back, to stop letting something so small have so much control. You are not powerless, you are not stuck, but you must choose to act before the damage becomes permanent. The time to fight is not when your back is against the wall, it's now, when you still have the choice, when you still have the power, before the habit grows roots and convinces you that it belongs, because it doesn't. And deep down, you know that. You were made for more. But more can only happen when you confront what's been holding you back. The war is silent, but your response must be loud. Not in words, but in action. Not someday, but today. Because if you don't break the habit now, it will break the life you're meant to build. You can't change what you refuse to confront. And you can't conquer what you won't acknowledge. That's why most people stay stuck in destructive patterns for years. It's not because they're incapable of change. It's because they've trained themselves to look the other way. They deny the damage. They rationalize the behavior. They tell themselves it's not that bad. But every time you lie to yourself about your habits, you give them more power. Denial is fuel. It feeds the fire of the very thing you claim you want to escape. And here's what makes it worse. The longer you deny it, the harder it becomes to see clearly. You begin to lose touch with what's normal. You stop noticing how much energy it drains, how much time it wastes, how much confidence it steals. You become numb to your own decline, and that numbness becomes your prison. But freedom begins with awareness. The moment you stop lying to yourself, the moment you decide to look your habits in the face without flinching, is the moment you begin to regain your power. There's nothing soft about honesty. It's not comfortable. It's not easy. It's not supposed to be. But it is necessary, because the truth cuts deep, but it also cuts clean. It clears the fog. It shows you exactly what's holding you back. And once you can see it, you can do something about it. Awareness isn't weakness. It's strength. It's the foundation of every transformation. Without it, you're just guessing. You're swinging in the dark, hoping something changes. But with it, you can aim. You can act. You can move forward with precision. The habit you pretend doesn't exist is the one that owns you. The one you justify, excuse, and downplay, that's the one silently controlling your future. And the only way to take back control is to stop running from the truth. Ask yourself, what's really going on here? What am I doing that I know is not helping me? Or what am I avoiding that I know must be faced? These are not easy questions, but they're the right questions. Because truth isn't about guilt, it's about growth. It's not about beating yourself up. It's about rising above what no longer serves you. There is no freedom without truth. There is no progress without awareness. The sooner you face it, the faster you can rise, and the longer you avoid it, the deeper you'll sink. Every great change begins with a brutally honest moment. Have that moment, own it, and then use it as the launch pad for something better. Because once you become aware, you are no longer a slave. You are a decision away from becoming unstoppable. Real transformation doesn't begin with willpower. It begins with identity. You don't escape bad habits by simply trying harder. You escape them by deciding who you want to become. Because the version of you who keeps falling back into the same destructive cycles is not the one who can build the life you want. The question you need to ask isn't just, how do I stop this? The question is, who must I become so this no longer feels normal? When your identity changes, your choices change. When your vision gets clearer, your actions begin to align. But if you keep trying to change your behavior without changing the image you hold of yourself, you'll always end up back where you started. That's why most resolutions fail. That's why motivation fades, because it's surface-level effort without a deeper shift in self-concept. You have to draw a line in your mind, a moment where you say, that version of me is done. That was survival mode. That was confusion. That was fear. I'm choosing something else now. Not because everything's perfect, not because it's easy, but because you've finally had enough. Because something inside of you knows you're capable of more. That's not arrogance. That's clarity. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need a clear decision. A decision to stop being loyal to your limitations. A decision to stop being available to your excuses. A decision to build a new internal standard. Not someday, but now. The mistake most people make is trying to change their life while holding on to the same identity that created their struggles. But you can't build a palace with the same blueprint that built a prison. You have to choose a higher standard and then align your behavior with that choice. It's not about pretending. It's about practicing. Show up every day like the person you've decided to become. Think like them, walk like them, speak like them, decide like them. And over time, the repetition builds belief. The belief reshapes your reality. That's how transformation sticks, not through hype, but through identity alignment. So ask yourself right now, who am I becoming? Is this habit helping me become that person? Or is it dragging me further from who I know I'm meant to be? The answers are already inside you, but you must be willing to listen, and even more willing to act. You weren't born to be trapped by old patterns. You were born to rise. And it starts with a decision, not just to quit something, but to become someone. That's the shift. That's the power. That's the beginning of everything new. You don't eliminate bad habits by fighting them directly. You eliminate them by making them irrelevant. Trying to resist a habit with sheer willpower is like standing in the ocean and yelling at the waves to stop. It doesn't work. Because habits aren't just behaviors, they're patterns tied to deeper needs. Every bad habit serves a function. It might be a way to escape pain, avoid discomfort, or feel in control. That's why just removing a habit doesn't create lasting change. It creates a vacuum, a space that demands to be filled. And if you don't fill it with something better, something empowering, the old habit will return. Not because you're weak, but because you're wired to meet your needs. That's why the most powerful way to break a bad habit is not just subtraction, it's substitution. Replace the behavior, replace the trigger, replace the entire loop with one that serves your growth. You must become intentional about what you feed your mind and body. You must create a new rhythm that satisfies the part of you that used to rely on the old pattern. If you used to escape stress by procrastinating or scrolling, you must replace that with something that relieves stress in a way that fuels you, like movement, stillness, journaling, or progress on a meaningful goal. If you used to numb your emotions with distractions, now you must face them head on, process them, and convert that energy into clarity and strength. Because transformation isn't about depriving yourself. It's about upgrading what you allow into your life. This is how the rewiring begins. Not by resisting who you were, but by building something so powerful that the old version of you has no space left to exist. Every time you choose a new pattern, even if it feels awkward or uncomfortable, you're laying a new track in your mind. You're shifting from reaction to intention, and repetition is the engine of that change. You can't just try it once. You have to commit to the process. You have to show up for the new habit like your life depends on it, because it does. Your future depends on what you normalize. If you normalize avoidance, excuses, and chaos, you'll keep creating more of it. But if you normalize clarity, action, and self-respect, you'll build a life that reflects that. So stop focusing on what you're trying to quit. Start focusing on what you're choosing to become. Don't just remove, rebuild. Don't just stop, upgrade. Replace the cycle and you replace the outcome. It's not about what you're losing, it's about what you're gaining. Because when you replace a bad habit with something that strengthens you, you're not just breaking free, you're rising higher than ever before. Discipline isn't a punishment, it's the doorway to your power. When people hear the word discipline, they often think of restriction, pressure, or pain. But that's a shallow view. Discipline is not about suffering, it's about choosing long-term strength over short-term relief. It's not something that cages you, it's something that builds you. It's the invisible force behind every powerful transformation. Without discipline, dreams remain fantasy. With it, they become inevitable. Because discipline is what shows up when motivation disappears, and it always disappears. No one feels inspired every day. No one wakes up with unlimited drive. That's why those who depend on motivation fail, and those who build discipline succeed. Discipline doesn't demand that you do everything perfectly. It simply demands that you show up, that you make progress when it's inconvenient, that you follow through even when your emotions try to bargain with your potential. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. Greatness is not built in bursts of inspiration. It's built in the quiet hours when no one's watching, when no one is clapping, when you do the hard thing simply because it needs to be done. That is the life-changing power of structure. When your actions are no longer based on how you feel, but on who you've committed to becoming, you've crossed the line from fragile to unstoppable. You can't control your emotions every day. You can't always predict what life will throw at you, but you can control your systems. You can choose a schedule, a ritual, a rhythm that you follow regardless of how you feel. It doesn't have to be extreme. It just has to be non-negotiable. Maybe it's waking up at a certain time. Maybe it's journaling your thoughts before the world distracts you. Maybe it's finishing one key task each day no matter what. These small acts of discipline become anchors. They keep you grounded when your mind tries to drift. They keep you moving when your excuses try to slow you down. Most people lose to their bad habits because they're waiting to feel ready. But success isn't about readiness. It's about reliability. The world doesn't reward the most gifted. It rewards the most consistent. You don't need to be the most talented. You just need to be the most committed to your routine. You don't need more motivation. You need structure. And once discipline becomes part of your identity, the habits that once controlled you begin to lose their grip. Because discipline rewires your mind to crave progress over pleasure, action over avoidance, and growth over comfort. And that is how you start winning. Not once in a while, but for the rest of your life. Every habit begins with a trigger, a cue, something that sets the loop in motion. Maybe it's stress. Maybe it's boredom. Maybe it's a certain time of day or even a specific place. Whatever it is, that trigger becomes the doorway to the habit you're trying to break. And the problem is, most people never look behind the habit. They just try to stop the action without disrupting what causes it. But if you want to win this battle, you must go to the root. You must identify the triggers and cut them off at the source, because habits are not random. They follow a rhythm. And if you want to change the rhythm, you have to interrupt the music that keeps playing in the background of your life. Start noticing what leads to your destructive patterns. When do you feel the urge? What are you doing? Or what are you thinking? Who are you with? Awareness creates separation. Once you name the trigger, you take away some of its power. You create space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you gain the ability to choose differently. And that's how the process begins, by starving the thing that feeds the habit. If your habit is linked to your environment, change it. If it's tied to your emotions, learn to process them in new ways. Don't just hope the temptation goes away. Take responsibility for removing the conditions that give it strength. But removing triggers is only half the battle. The other half is building your strength, feeding the version of you that wants to rise, not regress. You do that by creating momentum, by stacking small wins, by celebrating progress even when it's tiny. Because every time you win, you teach your brain something powerful: I can change. That belief matters. That belief builds. You begin to crave growth instead of comfort. You start wanting discipline more than distraction, because now you're not just avoiding a bad habit, you're becoming someone better. And that shift in identity is what turns change into a lifestyle. It's not about being perfect. It's about being aware and intentional. The more you starve the triggers, the weaker the habit becomes. The more you feed your focus, the stronger your discipline grows. Over time, the old pattern loses its grip, not because you fought harder, but because you got smarter. You redesigned the system. You created an environment where success is easier and failure is harder. That's how people rise, not through force, but through understanding. Not by resisting forever, but by rebuilding their world so that the bad habit no longer fits. That is how freedom begins, not with resistance, but with intelligent design. The words you speak are not just sounds, they are scripts, blueprints, silent contracts you make with your future. Most people have no idea how powerful their language is. They casually say things like, I'm always like this, I can't help it, that's just who I am, or I've never been good at that. And without realizing it, they're reinforcing the very chains they're trying to break. Every time you say something about yourself, especially with repetition, you're programming your mind to accept it as truth. And your brain doesn't argue, it obeys, it listens, it adapts, it becomes what you repeat. So if your story is filled with limitation, your life will mirror that limitation. If your story is about struggle, your reality will follow suit. You're not just telling a story, you're building an identity. One sentence at a time. If you want to break free from bad habits, you must first break free from the story that says they define you. Stop speaking like you're powerless. Stop repeating lines that anchor you to the past. Instead, create a new language, one that points toward who you want to become. Speak your future, not your failures. Say things like, I'm learning to be disciplined. I'm building a stronger mindset. I choose what serves me. These aren't just empty affirmations. They are signals to your subconscious that a new standard is being set. Over time, those signals become beliefs, and those beliefs shape decisions, and those decisions form habits. That's how powerful your words are. They either fuel your transformation or reinforce your prison. This doesn't mean you lie to yourself. It means you choose a new direction with your language, because you're not just describing your life, you're designing it. And design begins with thought, then speech, then action. If you want to live differently, you have to speak differently. You have to stop narrating your life through the lens of your limitations. Speak with intention. Speak with power. Speak as the version of yourself you're becoming, not the one you're trying to escape. Because identity is not something you're born with. It's something you build. And every time you open your mouth, you're either building or breaking it. So be careful with your words. They're not harmless. They're shaping your future. You want to break a bad habit? Start by breaking the story that keeps giving it life. Let your voice be the first place you shift. Let your words reflect your strength, not your struggle. Because when you speak with power, you begin to live with power. And that's how change truly begins, from the inside out. You can do everything right internally, build awareness, shift your identity, speak new words. But if your environment remains toxic, it will pull you right back into the old cycle. Your surroundings matter more than you think. The people you talk to, the voices you hear, the energy you allow into your space, all of it shapes your standards. It sets the tone for what you accept and what you normalize. If you are constantly around people who make excuses, complain about life, and settle for mediocrity, their energy will quietly infect your own mindset. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. We absorb what surrounds us. We adapt to fit the atmosphere we live in. And if that atmosphere is filled with low standards, you will either lower yours to match it or isolate yourself to protect what you're trying to build. Either way, the cost is high. You need to protect your mental space with the same intensity that you protect your home. You wouldn't let someone walk into your house and dump garbage all over your floor. So why allow people into your life who dump negativity, doubt, and laziness into your mind? Just because you've known someone for years doesn't mean they belong in your future. Some people aren't bad. They're just not right for the version of you that's growing. And if you keep dragging old energy into a new life, you'll keep getting the same results. You cannot rise surrounded by people who refuse to grow. You need standards. You need people who challenge you, not coddle you. People who remind you of your power, not your excuses. That doesn't mean you cut everyone off. It means you get intentional. You choose who gets your time, who gets your energy, and who gets access to your mind. You curate your environment like your life depends on it, because it does. The right circle will stretch you. They'll call you out. They'll raise the bar just by existing in your life. And when you're surrounded by high standards, you begin to reflect them. You start showing up differently, thinking differently, living differently. That's the invisible power of alignment. It's not about hype. It's about atmosphere. So if you're serious about breaking bad habits, look beyond yourself. Look at your environment. What are you surrounded by? Who are you listening to? What are you allowing in? Because even the strongest mindset will eventually crack if it's built in the wrong environment. Change your circle. Raise your standards. Surround yourself with growth, discipline, hunger, and truth. And watch how your life begins to mirror the energy around you. One of the most powerful ways bad habits survive is by attaching themselves to the past. They feed on your regrets. They grow in the soil of guilt. They convince you that because you failed before, you'll fail again. And so, instead of moving forward, you keep replaying old moments in your mind. The times you gave in, the days you didn't follow through, the decisions you wish you could take back. But here's the truth. The past only has the power you continue to give it. What happened yesterday is not who you are today. The mistake wasn't your identity. It was a moment, a decision, and the moment you realize that, you can choose differently. Too many people are imprisoned by shame, believing they have to carry their past everywhere they go. But shame doesn't change you. It changes you. It keeps you locked in a cycle of self-sabotage, repeating the same behaviors because deep down you don't believe you're worthy of anything better. That belief is the real poison, and it must be released. You are not your lowest decision. You are not the pattern you're trying to break. You are the person who's still standing, still here, still trying, still willing to grow. And that alone is proof that your story isn't over. But if you want to rise, you must be willing to let go. You must forgive the old version of you who didn't know better, didn't have the tools, didn't have the clarity. Forgiveness doesn't excuse the behavior. It just releases the weight. It frees you to move forward without dragging yesterday behind you, because the only moment that matters is the one you're in right now. You can't change the past, but you can transform your response to it. You can use the lessons instead of the pain. You can build a new rhythm that's not based on regret, but on resolve. And every time you choose presence, you weaken the grip of the past. Every time you say, I'm not going back, and act on it, You're building a new life. You don't need more time. You don't need more chances. You just need to fully own this moment and do what the future version of you will thank you for. So stop revisiting what you can't rewrite. Stop replaying scenes that no longer serve you. The next chapter of your life is unwritten, and you hold the pen. You don't owe the past anything, but you owe the future everything. Let go, refocus, rebuild, because the now is where your power lives. And when you fully step into it, you become unstoppable. Life presents only two kinds of pain: the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. One is temporary, the other lasts forever. One builds you, the other breaks you. The choice isn't always easy, but it's always yours. You might want to avoid discomfort, delay the hard decisions, and push off the battles with your habits, but know this: avoiding the pain of discipline only guarantees the heavier burden of regret. Every time you give in to an old pattern, every time you justify a bad habit, you're choosing a short-term relief that steals from your future. You're trading freedom for comfort. You're choosing to weaken your will, and in that moment, the habit grows stronger. The pain of discipline is hard, yes, but it's a pain that brings growth, resilience, and ultimately freedom. Regret, on the other hand, is silent but relentless. It creeps into your thoughts late at night. It whispers when you wake up. It haunts your confidence and clouds your dreams. Regret is the weight of knowing you could have chosen differently but didn't. It's the heavy chain around your potential, a constant reminder that you let yourself down. The pain of regret doesn't end, it compounds. It breeds more doubt, more fear, more habits that keep you trapped. The worst part is, regret isn't just about what you did, it's about what you didn't do. The opportunities you missed because you stayed stuck. The growth you sacrificed because you chose ease. The person you might have been if you had fought harder. But here's the truth: you don't have to live under the shadow of regret. You can choose the pain of discipline instead. You can decide that discomfort today is the price of freedom tomorrow. You can push through the resistance, refuse the excuses, and build a life where your habits serve you instead of enslave you. It's not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about showing up even when it's hard, because every act of discipline is a declaration: I am stronger than my impulses. I am more committed to my future than to temporary comfort. And when you live like that, no bad habit can break you. The battle is not with the habit itself. It's with the decision you make every day to fight for your future or surrender to your past. The moment you choose discipline, you take your power back. You reclaim your life. You prove to yourself that you are not a victim of your impulses, but a master of your destiny. So don't wait for the habit to break you. Break it before it breaks you. Choose the pain that makes you stronger, not the one that leaves you weaker. Your transformation is waiting on the other side of discomfort. Step into it, because your future deserves nothing less